I watch thousands of career changers try to break into data, and the number one struggle I often hear is that they never have enough time to complete all their courses and do all their projects while still working their 9 to 5. So if you're working a full-time job right now and you've committed to a full data analyst course thinking it's the safest path forward, that course is probably a trap. But I'm going to show you a method that builds real skills faster and actually fits into your life. And if you stick around through the end, I'm going to give you 3 copy and paste prompts that you can use to practice today, right now, with zero excuses. If you are serious about making this transition and want a structured roadmap instead of guessing and restarting every month, check the link in the description and the pinned comment for a free training on how to launch your new career in data analytics this year. Okay, so let me set the stage for why this matters right now, because the problem isn't that people aren't trying. People are basically trying really hard. They're waking up early, they're staying up late, even after their 12-hour shifts, and they're spending weekends watching tutorials instead of actually being with their families, and they're still not landing interviews. The issue is the way most people are learning data analytics is fundamentally broken, but it's not their fault. Here's what typically happens. Someone decides that they want to become a data analyst, so they find a 45-hour course online and they start really strong. Week 1 feels great, week 2 feels solid, and by week 3, life gets in the way. Deadline at work, a sick kid, a bad day where you just don't have the energy, and then the course just sits there unfinished collecting dust. And what follows is guilt, then a restart, and then another stall, and then another restart, and the cycle just goes on for months and sometimes even years. And the data backs this up, right? Research across major platforms like Coursera, edX, Udacity shows that the completion rates for online courses consistently sit below 10%. Well, over half the people who register for a course never even open the first lesson. The act of signing up for the course becomes a substitute for the act of learning. You get that little dopamine hit just by enrolling or just seeing that checkout go through. And your brain treats it like you've already made progress, but you haven't even gone anywhere. And here's the part that also really matters. The job market does not care how many modules you finish. It rewards proof that you can actually do the work. If you never finish courses, you don't build confidence, and you don't build proof, and you don't build momentum. You just build a longer list of things that you started and abandoned. So the question becomes, if courses aren't working for the vast majority of people learning while working full time, what actually does work? So about 4 years ago, when I was growing my own data community, I noticed the same thing happening and repeating itself. People working full time, wanting to break into data, and keep signing up for these massive courses and boot camps and committing these huge end-to-end projects. They thought the bigger the commitment meant faster results, or maybe just looking more impressive. But because the commitment was so large, they didn't finish. And if you don't finish, nothing compounds and nothing gets added to your portfolio or your resume, and nothing gets practiced to the point of confidence. So I flipped that entire strategy. I stopped letting people commit to these big, massive courses and projects and started telling them to stick to small, complete loops, 30-minute sessions, 1 skill per session, and finish something every single time you sit down. And the people who adopted this approach started progressing way faster than the people grinding through 60-hour courses. Not because they were smarter, but because they were actually finishing things. And finishing things is where skill lives. And that is what I'm going to teach you today. I call it the micro loop mastery method. It's built on 4 pillars. Each one matters, and skip one and the system just falls apart. So execute all 4 and you will build more real skills in 60 to 90 days than most people do in their entire year of just course collecting. Okay, so pillar 1. Small. Your learning block must be small enough to start even on your worst day. 30 minutes. That is the bar, no negotiation. And I don't mean 30 minutes of just watching a video. I mean 30 minutes of doing hands-on, keyboard, problem in front of you, timer running. Let me show you how this actually looks like. You get home from work, 6:30, you're tired, you don't feel like opening a 2-hour course module, but you can do 30 minutes. You sit down and you open a CSV file with messy data. Your only job for the next 30 minutes is to find and fix missing values, standardize date formats, remove duplicates. That's it. You're not trying to learn the entire data cleaning framework. You're not watching a lecture about the best practices. You're cleaning one data set with one specific focus, and then your timer goes off and you're done. Then you can go back to your own life. Here is why it works on the brain level. Your working memory can only hold about 4 chunks of new information at a time. A 2-hour lecture overwhelms that capacity. Your focus will collapse and then you stop retaining the information. But a 30-minute focus session aligns with how your brain naturally processes information. Short bursts of intensity followed by consolidation. You learn more in 30-minute focused sessions than in 2-hour distracted hours. That's not an opinion, that is cognitive science. And here's a practical benefit that no one talks about. After a full day of work, your brain is still running background processes from your day job. The emails you probably didn't finish, the meeting that stressed you out, the customer that stressed you out. Research shows that recovery time from a single context switch is roughly 23 minutes. A 30-minute block is short enough to cut through that mental residue and actually get into a focused state. A 2-hour session after work, your brain never really arrives. All right, so pillar 2, complete. You must finish every single session, not make progress, but finish. And here's what I mean. So let's say your loop today is a SQL drill. You sit down with 3 tables: customers, orders, products. Your challenge is to write a query that joins customers to orders, groups by regions, calculate total revenue per region, etc., etc. So you write the query, you run it, you check it against the answer key, and then you're done. That is a complete loop. You don't just go work on SQL for a bit. You solve a specific problem from start to finish. Now, compare that to what most people do. They open a course, they watch 20 or 30 minutes, or even a 45-minute lecture on joins, they get interrupted, they start daydreaming about something random, and then they close the laptop. And tomorrow they can't even remember where they left off. They watch the first 10 minutes, then they get through another 15, and by the end of the week, they've already spent 2 hours on one lecture where they haven't even written a single join themselves. The difference is completion. When we finish something, our brains get a neurochemical reward. Dopamine fires, and you feel accomplished. And that feeling is what makes you want to come back tomorrow. Your brain has a deep internal drive to complete tasks that have been started. And so when you leave things unfinished, it creates a low-grade cognitive anxiety that drains your motivation over time. But when you close that loop every session, you feed the drive instead of your anxiety. That is the engine of consistency, not willpower, but completion. Okay, pillar 3, focus. 1 skill per loop. No mixing, no chaos. So on Monday, your loop is data cleaning. Spend 30 minutes handling missing values, standardizing formats. That's all you do. Tuesday, your loop is SQL. Spend 30 minutes on free sites like SQL practice, PG exercises, etc. Wednesday, your loop is visualization. Find an awful and ugly looking chart or infographic on the internet and just remake it yourself the right way. You can take a screenshot of the chart and paste it into ChatGPT and ask it to extract the data and create a spreadsheet that you can now take into Excel, Tableau, or whatever, and remake the chart yourself. You don't try to clean data, write SQL, and build a bad chart all in the same session. That is how you learn 3 things poorly instead of doing each well. And here's why this also matters practically. When you isolate 1 skill per session, you're doing what's called direct practice. You're not reading about SQL, you're not watching someone else do it, you're writing SQL. And that direct engagement is what builds the neural pathways that let you perform better under pressure. A meta-analysis published found that students in active learning environments where they were solving problems instead of just listening to lectures were 1.5 times less likely to fail compared to passive learners. Every minute you spend doing the work is statistically more effective than every minute you spend watching someone else do it. Final pillar, number 4, stacked. You stack these loops into real competence over time. 5 loops per week, 20 per month. So in 60 to 90 days, you've done more focused reps than most course collectors do in an entire year. Your data career works the same way. You don't need one heroic effort. You need consistent, small, complete reps that stack until the compound effects become undeniable. All right, so let's make this real. So no more just nodding along. I want you to practice before this video is over. I don't have a data set to practice with. All right, so let's solve that right now. I want you to go to ChatGPT to generate everything that you need: the data set, the challenge, the answer key, all from one prompt. All right, so loop 1, the data cleaning loop. So here's your prompt, copy it word for word. Hey ChatGPT, generate a realistic messy data set as a CSV with 200 or more rows for an e-commerce domain. Include inconsistent dates, missing values, duplicates, inconsistent casing, and currency stored as strings. Then give me a 30-minute data cleaning challenge with 5 tasks and a checklist of what done looks like. You're going to get a CSV that looks like real business data. Data cleaning is like the cardio of analytics, and we spend about 80% of our time on it. So if you can't clean data efficiently, really nothing else matters. Loop number 2, the SQL loop. Your prompt, hey ChatGPT, create 3 tables, customers, orders, products. Then create 3 different data analyst interview style challenges for me. One at the beginner level, one intermediate, and then one advanced. And then also include the answer queries afterwards. These are the exact same patterns that will show up in a technical interview. Drill one SQL loop daily for 2 weeks, and you'll walk into technical screening with fluency that most bootcamp grads do not have. Because while they just spend all their time watching someone else write them, you wrote them yourself. All right, now loop 3, the data visualization loop. Your prompt, hey chat, generate a clean data set with a CSV of 120 rows, including the date, metric, category, region. They give me a 30-minute visualization challenge with a chart type, question and answer, one annotation or reference line, and a conclusion style chart title. And then include a sample insight statement a hiring manager would value. Now, let's pause the video and do loop 1 right now. Open ChatGPT, paste the prompt, and set a 30-minute timer, and come back here when you're done. Okay, so let's tie this all together. Most of us, we're over investing in consumption. We're watching lessons, we're finishing modules, we're collecting certificates, and we're confusing activity with progress. But what actually compounds in this field is completion, repetition, and proof. A finished rep is worth way more than 10 hours of just passive watching. Courses don't fail people, lifestyles fail people. A 40-hour course assumes you have 40 hours of uninterrupted focus to give. We don't. That is not a weakness, that's just reality. Small loops win because they reduce decision fatigue, and they reduce guilt, and they create momentum. And most importantly, they create an output that you can actually show to a hiring manager. So after 90 days of stacking loops, you don't just have skills, you have a complete folder of clean data sets, working queries, and charts with insight statements. So that's not a certificate, that is a working portfolio. And portfolios are what gets people hired. So where do we go from here? Stop buying more courses just because you feel behind. Stop committing to these big end-to-end projects when you can't even protect the time to finish them. Stop confusing watching videos with skill development. Start doing 30-minute loops 4 to 5 days a week, 1 loop per skill. Track your loops like workouts, date, skill, output. And for the next 7 days, pick 1 skill and loop until it's automatic. Don't spread yourself thin, go deep on one thing. That is how you build the kind of confidence that shows up in interviews. I'll see you in the next one.